You're also a business angel and an active builder of the African entrepreneur and innovation ecosystem. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's really a pleasure. Now, just to give you a little bit of background on Karim, he's the founder of Joko Labs. Many of you have probably heard of it. It's a private nonprofit organization. It was launched in Senegal in 2010, and it's really one of the first African innovation hubs. And in October 2018, he was elected chairman of Digital Africa. Digital Africa is a platform that was launched here at VivaTech a year ago, but it was actually launched officially in November during Emerging Valley in Aix-en-Provence. Could you maybe remind our audience why it was created and what it aims to do?
Well, when we say it was launched here, actually it's the President Macron who launched it because he announced the facility of 65 million euro that will be dedicated for small entrepreneur in Africa. And actually, Digital Africa is a project strongly supported by the President Macron. You know, in his approach to change the relation between Africa and France and Europe, by extension, we start thinking of new way of doing things, and Digital Africa emerged as a joint African, French, and more than that, European initiative when we can co-create together and see how we can engage. You know, in Africa, we see now an exceptional energy with all those youth, the creative people there on the field, but we don't see people who are really emerging. You say, where is the unicorn? Where are those champions? You know, and when we analyze it, we see that there is a lot of missing link in the ecosystem, and so we need to come and perhaps try to work together to share experience and work to structure the ecosystem. So this is Digital Africa. How we can join forces with all the actors. There is around 20 actors in an ecosystem where they can be very curious about the entrepreneur from the idea to turn it to a success. So you have the investor, you have the expert, you have the support organization, and so we bring all together to organize a supportive environment for the entrepreneur. So that's.
So you have a good overview of the African ecosystem. I mean, it's huge. It's the size of a continent. So with a lot of disparities, could you explain to us maybe what's the main problem of the entrepreneur? I know there are a lot, but and they're probably different from country to country. But what's the main sticking point when it comes to trying to rise as a startup?
Definitely, it's different from one country to another. There is some places that are more mature as an ecosystem than others, and it's also linked to the openness of the market, the business environment, the capacity to access to finance. But first, you know, there is two dimensions. One dimension is the internal, me as an entrepreneur. The second one is the external environment. And what we want is to be sure that the entrepreneur really have that creative idea and really think he has something, that he can realize it. So first thing is to really understand the path of the entrepreneur. You know, there is different steps he have to go through. He have his idea, then he find his team, he build his prototype, he go to the market, and he challenge the market, and then he scale. So we need to have all the needs, because the needs change on all that path, and to organize it so it can really support the entrepreneur to make it. And so get that bridge, you know, to cross the valley of death. Because from 1 to 5 years, they can die. You take Senegal, for example, you say that there is 60% of the enterprise who die after 1 year. So it's virtuous. I mean, you have so much entrepreneurs who can make it, actually. So we need to organize all the actors so they can do it, and to be very supportive for those entrepreneurs. And that's what that we want to come and bring. So we will bring different solutions for that, for the financial also, starting from supporting business angel network to trying new type of seed funding organization with technical assistance, support of the different hubs. There is plenty of hubs, and we have hubs like AfriLab that are a member of Digital Africa. So we already have a network of more than 150 hubs all over 40 countries in Africa. But the main thing is also how we federate different initiatives. For example, you have Rasmus, who is here from the Creative Business Cup, which is an initiative from Denmark. So because it's also an European, we see it as an international initiative to bring together people who are interested in making happen the new economy in Africa. Africa, it's important to say it. The President Macron used to say the future of the world will be played in Africa. And why it will be? Because, you have all this demographic. We have doubling the population every 20 years in Africa. You have all the challenge of the climate change. You have all those issues we already know. But it can be an opportunity because in the meantime, you have 80% of the minerals that are in that continent. You have 70% of all the agricultural land when we need to feed the world tomorrow, So there is plenty of opportunity, but there's also risk. So how we join forces to really have an impact, because we don't have a lot of time. And that's why if we join all the initiative, my friend from Denmark, my people on the ground are doing great things, and we connect them. One, like at the beginning of this week, I was talking to someone who was implementing a Fab Lab in Libya. I mean, when you think about Fab Lab, the last place you think about is Libya, But it's a $2.5 million project. So it's not just a small makerspace you have there. It's a huge facility of 1,000 square meters linked to the MIT, working on innovation in Libya. So everywhere there is things that are going on the continent. So how we connect those guys to the other. So we want to connect the dots, and that's also the.
So we often talk about what developed countries have to bring to Africa, but what does African innovators have to teach to people here in Europe? I think what's absolutely fascinating is the fact that in the way that they think of the tech they're going to develop, it's actually based and driven by necessity, in some countries at least, and they have to have an innovation that goes beyond what we can even imagine, because sometimes there are a lot of infrastructure problems. Why is that bridge between Europe and Africa so important, one way and the other?
First, it's not just Europe who goes to Africa. What we want to see is Africa who come to Europe, and to come with the creativity, the energy, and the entrepreneurship. And what we can see is Africa have a lot of creativity to share. And when you think about those markets, when you take General Electric, for example, they come and they develop an echography system. It was for Africa, but the biggest market was in the US, because all the small doctors want to get that system, in small village, in remote area. So what you see is that finally, when we are in a world in transition from one economy to a new economy, where we need to change the way we consume energy, where we consume banking. When you see the mobile banking industry in Africa, that is more advanced than in Europe, So there are a way of going to a leapfrog. So going to that leapfrog is going very quickly. And that's very interesting, because here we have all those assets. When we go to innovation, we say, okay, we have to get the return of investment, so just wait before we go to a new technology. But in Africa, they go directly. So they are reinventing new way for solving their problem. But what is the problem of Africa? It's electricity, it's food, is a very concrete problem, but the problem we have here for that new era that is coming, because we know that we need to change now. We need to change the way we consume things. We need to change the way of our behavior to face the challenge of the 21st century. So actually, we have a lot to learn from Africa, and we have a lot to share with them, because it can be a kind of laboratory to emerge the new technology that will bring. You know, I was in discussion a few years ago with the vice president of the Singularity University. I think you know what is the Singularity University. NASA, Facebook, Google, I mean all the top players. And in the most advanced technology they're working. And he was telling me, it's not the new social network that will be the big hit for this century. It will be those who will come to solve the most pressing problem we have. The most pressing problem we have is energy, how we do, is how we feed the world, how we go for all those challenges of issue of development. And issue of development is the issue of Africa. So when we work on Africa, actually we're working on solving the problem for the world.
So it's all about going back to the essential as well. We hear a lot about frugal innovation here in developed countries. We're going back to simpler processes for many reasons, but one of them being, of course, energy consumption. So we have on one hand smart cities that are rolling out 5G, but on the other we also have other cities who just don't have the means to do that and who are just using simple Raspberry Pis to monitor data. So in that sense, does also Africa is maybe going to be leading the way to that as we go back on the way we innovate.
The thing is, when you see all those frugality you're talking about, it's also a way of doing prototype. And so when it's the first step actually for innovation, because innovation now is an approach for open innovation. You cross your network, you know. I was in Taiwan a few months ago, and actually from there they were exchanging from the US, Taiwan, and some people from Africa. So, I mean, also you need to see that the technology and with internet and everything, it's open the windows to the world. So people are connected and they share their resources. So what it means you can develop some research there. You can produce from small production in Taiwan for 1 to 10,000 a unit, because you can't do here because we are in the huge number. So it costs too much. So you do your scale, and then you come, and when you reach your market, you become a unicorn. And actually, people are starting working on that and thinking of those kind of things. I mean, you have the Fabrique des Mobilités, which is an association, and they're working, for example, on a new kind, a car, which is an open car. So you develop the technology on a car, but you share it with others. And they're working on electric cars, you know, with an open innovation with different communities. We do that also we do some hackathon for how you use the data from the satellite. You know, you use Copernicus and data. You can manage your land there in Africa. It's totally crazy. So technology gives us the power to do things we can't imagine. So now what we need is to connect those who have the creativity to know that technology exists, to master the technology, and then to make a leapfrog to really solve the problem they face.
And that's exactly why Digital Africa exists, to bridge the two continents together. Thank you so much, Karim. We actually don't have time to take questions. I'm very sorry about that, but it was a pleasure to interview. Thank you.